Hi and welcome to the We Need Roads podcast. And Detective Jose has somehow managed to lose David again already. Jose, where is David?
He just managed to lose me in a foot race. I am not in the shape that I used to be in, so he ran around the corner and I lost him.
Well, he's definitely still alive, as we speculate each time he goes
Yes.
missing. So today we are going to be talking trailers, Apple TV, and we're going to be giving our first non-spoiler reaction to Across the Spiderverse. We're going to look at trailers for Greta Gerwig's Barbie, Jennifer Lawrence's new comedy No Hard Feelings, and the first trailer for Martin Scorsese's epic Killers of Flower Moon, which has a running time of 3 hours and 26 minutes, which this podcast won't. Also, with Apple TV, we're going to be diving into a solo, we're going to be looking at Platonic, City on Fire, and the Big Door Prize. So first up, we're going to be talking the new Barbie trailer.
We going with teaser or the full trailer?
The full one. But there's a difference between the two of them, actually, I found.
There is, yes. The teaser is just a lot more lighthearted, and then I think the full trailer really shows you what's going to happen in an interesting way.
Well, I think the teaser trailer only showed you pretty much shots from when they were in Barbie Land, Barbie World.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Whereas the new trailer shows them in the real world.
Yeah, I think that's what one of the biggest questions we had going into this is, even though we saw them, like Ryan Gosling and Margot Robbie doing their rollerblading costumes on the beach, we were like, is this really going to be in the real world? What's the characters going to be like? Are they purposely cheesy?
What was the plot, really? And now we kind of know what the plot is. And I think the funniest thing is, like, you see the bit at the start, you get the repetition of her day, like almost like Groundhog Day in perfect Barbie world.
Yes.
And I was thinking, okay, so far so as people expect, but then you get that first great line she utters at the dance party, where she just says, "Do you guys ever think about dying?" And I was like, "Yep, that's the Greta Gerwig script right there." Much to the horror of all the other Barbies.
Oh, I love that. I as soon as I saw that part and then the rest of the trailer kept going, I'm like, this is going to be great.
That's the tone, right? That is the tone of the film.
If anything, I was never worried, because the cast. Yeah. I mean, obviously, Greta Gerwig, I didn't know until the last minute that she was the director, but that also confirms it. But I think even before any of that, I think also the fact that the Lego movie, we didn't know what that was going to be. And I think that made good movies out of interesting concepts a possibility even before you know what's going on. You know, granted, the Emoji Movie, that was completely opposite.
We don't talk about the Emoji Movie.
Yeah. But I think for me, the Lego Movie made it possible for me to really hear some of these potential projects and think, you know, this could be something amazing. And that, well, I think we've confirmed it with that first trailer.
Oh yeah, well, and like I say, what I like about this trailer is you see that sudden awakening that Margot Robbie's Barbie has. It appears to start a kind of chain reaction that starts to fracture her reality. You know, she has a cold shower. She falls off her roof instead of gliding off her roof. And most egregiously, her heels are on the ground. Oh, the horror.
I know. That was so funny. It's like the other character with a crazy voice, like screaming. I couldn't help myself. So I won't go into all the details, but it looks like the gist of it is that Ken and Barbie go into the real world, and while they're gone, the Kens of the Barbie land seem to want to take over. And there's one shot when it looks like they're coming back. It says Ken World, but like scribbled on the thing, not like an actual, like they just kind of like zombie takeover world where they scribbled on the entrance, and it's not really Ken World. So I think that there's going to be a really interesting perspective on like who's really in charge and the patriarchy versus matriarchy. Or I'm just 100%. Overthinking it.
No, I think there is no way Greta Gerwig would have took this project if she didn't have something important to say about that. And, you know, it wasn't... Anyone who thinks it's just going to be a standard... I don't even know how... a reductive film of like, oh, it's lots of pretty girl... You know, that's not what the film was going to be from day one. There was no way he was going to get her involved, and it was going to be something like that. We do also get the first proper look at Kate McKinnon's marker face Barbie, who tells Robbie she needs to go to the real world. And so it's the whole Matrix thing, isn't it? It's the red room versus the blue pill. But, you know, it's high heels versus Birkenstocks. And immediately she chooses the high heels, and McKinnon's like, no, choose again.
I have to say that's a really good use of a tried and true trope. You know, choose one or the other, but making it more fun again, you know, instead of just like retreading easily on something that could have been a dumber joke.
Well, what I liked was the visual style, because as we move on from that bit, we see that she decides she's going to go to the real world, and Ken's stowed away with her, and then you have this little montage bit of them travelling all these different. But it looked like something out of a Wes Anderson film, didn't it? It had that kind of that aesthetic to it.
And I saw that people, well, they saw the vehicles, and they were actually based on real vehicles in the lineup of the toys.
Which
I thought was pretty
obviously
cool.
that's got to be something like that, man. But and then of course we see them in the real world, and as you mentioned earlier on, we got the rollerblading scene, and what happens? Barbie immediately gets molested with some guy slapping her backside, and of course she punches him in the face, and of course that's you get the brilliant prison shots of like Ken posing for his because of course he would.
And what's interesting is when they're in the hospital, Ken it turns out is a doctor in his world, and so then he's just like playing that whole like, oh, you're a doctor? No, I'm a doctor. Where's the other doctor that's a male? I really think this is going to be such a great, like...
That's a great, like, end tag on the joke, yeah. He's like, I'm a doctor. Give me a clipboard and one of those sharp things. And he goes, no, you're not a doctor. You know, it's just... I go, but I'm a man. So and I thought, well, yeah, that's exactly the tone. Exactly.
Yeah.
You've also got quite a good link, actually, with the Lego movie, because you've got Will Ferrell in it, playing the guy who's in charge of it all, who seems to know a little bit more about what's going on than we do at this point in the trailer. So he's almost like the similar role to the Lego movie, isn't he?
You know, I know it's different directors, but wouldn't it be fun if it was actually the same actor, like same character? But I don't think so, because at the end of the Lego movie, he's actually a happy dad, so it's very unlikely.
Isn't his character? I forget what it's actually called. I don't know if it's been confirmed yet, but wasn't it on the posters when they had the individual character posters come out, and Will Ferrell was called Mother. So I think he's the person who designed. Google it, yeah. So I mean, at the end of the day, right? Is this going to make more money than Oppenheimer? And you know what? It just might.
You know what? Here's the thing. I think what people forget is that anything related to children's content makes tons of money, and so money-wise, this is gonna.
Yeah, you look at Barbie, right? It's gonna make money because it's based on the toys, so it's aimed towards you're gonna get definitely gonna get the young girl audience in. You're also gonna get the people who like a good comedy in because of the out jokes, and of course the other thing Barbie's got going for it is absolutely taken down the gay market. Like this will be one of the biggest films for the gay audience going. I mean, look at the soundtrack. You know, so they exactly know what. Look at all the marketing. The marketing, they absolutely know what they're doing with this. And it will appeal to so many people.
You know what I just remembered? On social media, especially particular Instagram for me, a lot of people, you were using a filter where they got to reuse the...
Yeah. How brilliant is that? And you could put your own thing in.
Yeah. So I'm looking at Will Ferrell's, and it's also interesting. His color is brown. So it's like very much different from all the other colors that are more bright.
Interesting.
And his does say, please call me mother.
There you go. Yep. Will Ferrell is mother.
Like, oh, that's awesome.
It's funny because I know someone asked Matt Damon the other day. Matt Damon was doing press for something. They asked him because he's in Oppenheimer, and they said, "Oh well, you know, what do people go and see, Barbie or Oppenheimer?" He's like, "You go and see both." You know, that's what we've been saying since day one. It's not this big battle. There's such completely different films.
Yeah.
And the fact they're both coming out on the same day, it's simple. You go and see both on the same day. You go and see Oppenheimer first because that's a dark, disturbing drama about nuclear annihilation, and then you go and see Barbie afterwards as a palate cleanser.
Yes, that's true. Here's an interesting thing I've forgot that I've been seeing people talking about is the character played by Connor Swindles.
The intern, just an intern. I remember that
intern.
from the poster.
And so he's not technically a Ken. And I'm wondering how important his character is going to be in terms of like, will he help the Barbies out when the Kens take over?
Well, is he going to be in the real world or the Barbie land? We don't know that either yet, do we? Where his character's going to be based. I'm just thinking if he's not a Ken, then he might be in the real world. Connor Swindles, though, he's actually one of three actors in this from Sex Education.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, you've got Emma Mackay's in it from Sex Education. Ncuti Gatwa's in it, who's going to be the new Doctor Who as well, and you've got Connor Swindles as well. So you've got three of the cast from that show in this film.
Oh, that's awesome.
I assume, Jose, are you going to be watching this? Are you going to do both on the first day this comes out?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't know if I can do both on the first day, but I am going to watch both. I think that you're right. These are two very drastic movies with different target audiences. Oppenheimer very more niche in a way, I think, for adult audiences. But Barbie, I think, has the ability to just go across.
Big crossover hit, definitely.
Yeah, and it does look like it's going to be such a smart movie that it can be viewed by almost anyone. except for maybe bros, or what do you call them? Like guys who are just all about image and masculinity.
I am too old to care about any of that stuff, Jose. Or what we even call these people, to be fair.
Gotcha.
So that brings us on to our next trailer, which is also a comedy and lots of bright colours, and that is No Hard Feelings. And my opening line here would have worked if David was here, because it was, David, can I touch your wiener? Because he has a sausage dog. But unfortunately,
yes.
Yes, exactly. It would have worked. But no, next up we do have Jennifer Lawrence's return to the screen, and she's kind of had a bit of a brief sabbatical recently. She's I know she got married, she's had a child, so she's not been in as many films. So I was double checking and thinking, she's not actually done that much for a while. But she's still done, I think, 1 or 2 films each year. Mm-hmm. So her most recent one was a big drama on Apple called Causeway, which was apparently really good, that I've still not seen.
Yeah.
But this is a coming-of-age sex comedy called No Hard Feelings, and it's directed by Gene Stupnitsky, who used to work with Lee Eisenberg, and they both started out on The Office, The American Office.
No way.
And then they wrote Bad Teacher together, and then Stupnitsky went on solo, and his first film solo as a director was the 2019 comedy Good Boys, which, again, that was a really funny film with a bunch of kids in it, and I don't think he did that well, to be fair. I think it got good reviews, but it barely made a dent. I remember it was on once when I went to see it in the screening. There was it's not usually films were on 2 or 3 times throughout the day. This was on once, and that was it. But now we have 2 trailers for this, and the first one made me laugh out loud multiple times, while this second new one, it made me laugh once. So I don't know if they're kind of trying to...
Which version? Oh, was it the one that
There was 2 Red Band trailers. There was 2.
Yeah.
And the first one came out about a month or so back, and the new one only came out recently. And the basic gist of the movie is that Jennifer Lawrence's character is an Uber driver, but without a car. And she takes a job to date a rich couple's geeky teenage son before he goes off to college. And by date, as they heavily imply in the trailer, I think they mean fuck. Or as Lawrence says in the trailer, I'll date his brains out.
Yes.
And what follows is kind of scene after scene of Lawrence failing really badly at trying to seduce the teenager. However, the scene where he pepper sprays her when he thinks he's being abducted really did make me laugh. That was
classic.
Just on her knees, screaming, why? That was brilliant.
Yes.
And the other bit in that trailer that really made me crack up is when there's a party scene towards the end, and he's trying to defend her, and he drunkenly goes to punch the guy, and he punches her in the throat, and just the gagging noises. I was cracking up.
Yes. I really think this is going to be a really great film for Jennifer Lawrence to quote-unquote come back in the mainstream, because we all know she's a great actress, and I think we also have kind of been she's been a little bit overshadowed by her real life personality. How for a while she was just trying to be a normal person. This just really allows us to see a funny side of her that wasn't really being visible.
Well, she hasn't really done many out and out comedies. I mean, she was in Don't Look Up, and that was kind of a comedy, but it was also really dark and weird. And so, and she wasn't really in it that much, to be fair.
I think it's just a good time to have a fun, raunchy comedy that we haven't had in a while, but also this just looks like it's really well done at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're going to get from this is, like you say, it's like, remember we had that kind of classic period of films like The Wedding Crashers. Basically, if you remember, American Pie, Dodgeball, a lot of the Ben Stiller and Will Ferrell films from that time.
Yes.
And if you notice, if you go back and look at any of the DVDs on your shelf, or even people who have DVDs these days, they all use the same red and white font. It's like, this is an adult comedy, red and white font. There you go. And that's like, and the second I saw this, I was like, okay, it's going to be that exact type of film. Again, some of the jokes in the trailer, the skinny dipping scene where the kid's just trying to find any reason not to get in the water. That's the issue you'll have with the trailer. There's this bit where she's trying to get him to get in the water with her and skinny dip. I mean, that does seem a bit of a stretch, because what teenage boy wouldn't want to get in the water with a naked Jennifer Lawrence? As she says to him, get in the fucking water. However, there is a new trailer, and again, the only kind of really big laugh I got, there was 2 jokes in the new one that weren't in the previous one, and there's one where she's going room to room looking for him at a party full of teenagers.
Oh, yes.
And they're all just on their phones, and she literally goes, doesn't anyone fuck anymore? I was like, brilliant.
Yes. Oh, in the beginning of the trailer, they kind of do a double take where you see her, we've talked about Jennifer Lawrence being great movies, and she's crying in the beginning, and then it switches to actually being a comedy. I think it's a good fake out. Yeah,
well, and they say it plays into that image of her being a serious dramatic actress, and then just now coming back and doing a fun out and out comedy.
Yeah.
The scene where she's trying to give him a lap dance and he says she's a little heavy on his legs. That was really funny as well. And when the Butch goes, "Would you want to switch?" And it just that straight cut to him, like in a long shot, just bouncing. I know it was really funny as well.
Yes.
The film actually stars Andrew Barr Feldman as Percy, who's the main kid in it, who Lawrence's character is tasked with dating. But you've also got Matthew Broderick playing his father, Natalie Morales, and Ebin Boss Bacharach from he was in The Bear and Andor. He's the guy at the front in the first trailer who's taking away a car who looks like one of her exes. Now, this film looks eminently predictable, but it does look really funny. I think the only worry is they've showed us all the best jokes in the trailer, which I hope they haven't. And I feel like they've done that to try and get as many people go, oh, it's an out-and-out comedy. But it's not, I think, what this is going to make? I predict right now that the film will be, she will bring him out of his shell, because you see it a little bit in the trailers, and he ends up getting together with a girl his own age, which we also get a glimpse of in the trailers.
Yes.
And I'll tell you what it reminds me of. It reminds me of that Alicia Cuthbert film from 2004, The Girl Next Door. It's that kind of coming-of-age story where you've got the older woman, you're like, well, I suppose Jennifer Lawrence is, 30, right? And you've got the younger teenage guy who's, like, awkward. So it's kind of that similar thing. I think it's going to be more like a sort of kind of a sweet coming-of-age story. But they've front-loaded all the jokes in those trailers to get people in to see it. I mean, I did see one comment online, though, when someone said, this film would have never been made if it was two parents paying a 30-year-old man to sleep with their 19-year-old shy daughter.
Oh, my God, you're right.
Yeah, so...
it really does show the double standards of gender right now.
Yeah, and that's the interesting... It's going to be interesting what the commentary on this film is when it comes out. But yeah, like, you couldn't make that film, ever. Like, not even 20 years ago, in the height of the American Pies and all that, you couldn't make that film. So
I'm looking at the cast list, and there's two character actors, or maybe not character actors, but two actors I like, really. Hassan Minhaj and Kyle Mooney. Kyle Mooney you may not recognize, but if you see his face...
Kyle Mooney's the one I know, because he's on SNL. It's the other guy. So who's the other guy, then?
Hassan Minhaj, I think he's a political correspondent for some shows that I've watched, and he's actually very smart. So to see him in a comedy like this, I'm interested to see what kind of character he's going to play. If he's going to play it straight, or if he's going to be more of like a bit part, or what. But I really think this. Oh, that's what I was going to say. This movie, I think when you say, "Oh, we know what's going to happen at the end," it's one of those movies where the concept might be simple, but it's how they play on it that really
the journey, not the destination.
Correct. Yes.
As long as the performances are fine-tuned, you don't care that the story is something you've seen a million times. Because that's why we get the same films made over and over again. It's just, because you want to see a different performer doing it. But I am going to see this. We've got a preview of this at my local cinema. I am booked for that Monday night, 7:30 on, I don't know, in a week or two's time, because it depends when this podcast comes out. So, finally, we have our first look, and it is quite a brief look so far, at Martin Scorsese's epic masterpiece, because come on, it's going to be an epic masterpiece, Killers of the Flower Moon, which is about the members of the Osage tribe being murdered in mysterious circumstances in the 1920s, sparking a major FBI investigation involving J. Edgar Hoover. It stars Scorsese regulars Leonardo DiCaprio, both together for the first time in a Scorsese film, and the film also has Lily Gladstone, Jesse Plemons, John Lithgow, and now Oscar winner Brendan Fraser, all working with Scorsese for the first time. From the gorgeous slow-mo opening shots of the Indians appearing to dance in the oil, you already know you're in for a masterpiece. Based upon the true story, I'd hazard a bet that De Niro looks like he's going to be one of the villains of the film, and we infer from the trailer that Lily Gladstone and DiCaprio's characters are together, and we see the look she gets from the rural Oklahomalands as the trailer progresses. We then hear the trailer's main refrain for the first time, "Can you find the wolves in this picture?" As the pace picks up and we get all the classic Scorsese shots, shootouts, beatings, all the kind of good stuff you associate with Scorsese films. And you get shots of lots of powerful old white men as the trailer asks us once again, can you find the wolves in this picture? It has an epic runtime of 3 hours and 26 minutes. So, you know what, that's not as long as The Irishman, and Apple will be banking on that being their big Oscar winner next year, having put in a £200 million budget. Now, I know nothing about the true story this is based on, and I don't want to know about it until I've seen the film. But I imagine it's something along the lines of evil rich white people murdering Native Americans to steal their oil. And it's Scorsese, so of course, it's going to be... the dude is 80 now. At this point, we're going to get, maybe 2 or 3 films more best out of him? Did you know he met the Pope the other day, and the Pope's trying to convince him to make a film about Jesus? And that's hilarious because, 30 years ago, he did The Last Temptation of Christ and was almost, and he was literally almost chased down by religious extremists.
Wow.
So, and now he's like, hanging out with a Pope.
Before anything, I really do want to say, when I saw the trailer for the first time, and that the question, "Can you find the wolves in this picture?" comes up a second time with all those, for lack of a better term, white people in the shot. That really was a great setup, what they did there. I really love that. I mean, obviously, Scorsese, how's he not going to do something great like that?
He doesn't make a bad film. He doesn't make bad films, man. That's what he said. He was complaining in an interview a little while ago that he's 80 and he hasn't got much longer left, and yet he only just now feels like he's mastered cinema.
I'm fascinated and scared at the same time that he's 80 and he's coming to that realization. Because then I'm like, I'm only halfway there. Going back to the cast, obviously the one I'm waiting to watch is Brendan Fraser. Because is he playing a villain? Is he playing just a douchebag or a horrible white person?
He's positioned next to De Niro, isn't he, in the trailer? And we've seen with De Niro a couple of times.
It depends, because in that last shot, like I said, where he asked the question again, he's actually farther to the left, almost outside of the group, standing. So it could be just he happens to be a white guy. But, I mean, we're all just saying this because Brendan Fraser is such a good guy in real life that maybe we just don't expect him to play a villain or an evil character.
What's going to be interesting for this film, because I originally thought, because it got delayed because of COVID and budget and all that kind of stuff, and originally I'd heard that, DiCaprio was the main character along with De Niro in that. But then, because of that, DiCaprio had to step down from the character he was supposed to be playing, and Jesse Plemons was going to be playing that main character. And so I don't know if that still happened, but they've just edited it so it looks, I mean, you're obviously going to publicise DiCaprio as the main character, but he might not be.
I think you're right.
He might be Plemons. Plemons looks like he's the cop who's investigating it all.
Yeah, he might be the one that kind of just looks at all.
I mean, not knowing the story and only speculating here, wouldn't it be a great twist if DiCaprio's character gets killed off in it early on? Like, you're an hour in and
pull him off a Scream situation where Drew Barrymore gets killed off in the first scene.
Well, I think DiCaprio's in it a bit more than that, but yeah, I mean,
I'm just saying, you never know. The only thing I have with Jesse Plemons is I like to call him the discount Matt Damon, but I don't even know how to put that into this whole conversation.
I mean, I think you just did. I think you've been harsh on discount Matt Damon.
No, I'll be honest. Yeah, he is actually a really great actor.
And he's only getting better. Power of the Dog, Fargo. Yeah, it's just
that one of the first times I saw him was in Black Mirror? And he was playing that video game creator. And I'm like, he kind of looks like Matt Damon, but not quite. And I thought it was funny. But like then also the movie where all the adults are game night. He plays such a great character, and he brings it back at the end of the movie. I was just like, I love this guy. I don't care how weird he is. But I mean, I've also seen interviews. He's actually a normal guy he's married to Spider-Man's girlfriend, Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. That was
They met on Fargo in season 2, where they played husband and wife.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, he's definitely someone I enjoy watching, honestly.
So, as on the last episode, we rightly trounced Netflix and Disney Plus for their penny-pinching cancellation ways. This time, I want to talk about how goddamn good the current roster of shows on Apple TV is. Now, Apple TV, yes, they are putting up their prices to pretty much the same as Netflix and Disney and all that this year. But for a good couple of years since their launch, they were the cheapest service. And in the UK, it was like £50 for the year. But they didn't have that much content. But you can argue the quality of what they produced was a lot higher.
Yeah, I mean, even with just Ted Lasso and the morning show for us being one of our favorite shows, you could see it was very polished.
Oh, well, we'll get on to the morning show at some point because season 3 is coming up. No, first of all, I want to talk about one of the new shows. And this is probably going to be Apple's second best sci-fi book adaptation of the year. Because, I'm sorry, but Foundation was our show of the year a year or so back.
Oh, and yeah, it was great show.
That was like watching Dune, but on TV in the scale of it. It was absolutely amazing. But Apple obviously realising they're onto a good thing there with adapting classic sci-fi novels. We've now got Silo, which is based upon a series of books by author Hugh Howey, and it's about a community that lives in an underground, silo, as the outside world is toxic and uninhabitable. People live in a society full of regulations that they believe are there, and they are meant to protect them. The cast is top-lined by Rebecca Ferguson, stepping down to TV for the first time since Mission Impossible movies. She's in everything currently. Dr. Sleep, she was amazing as Rosa Hat. And she plays a character from Mechanical down in the depths, who's suddenly thrust into a very important position in the Silo's hierarchy. Now, we have Ann Perkins from Park and Rec as well as in it. Rashida Jones turns up, and you got David Oyelowo as the Silo's sheriff. We've also got Tim Robbins in it as a guy called Bernard Holland, who's head of the judicial system, and he looks shifty as fuck from day one, to be fair. Now, as you haven't caught up on it yet, Jose, what I will say is over the first few episodes, I've seen that some of the characters begin to question everything they've been told about the outside world, and the main rule of the silo is, if you ask to leave, you'll be allowed to leave. The one rule being, when you're made to leave, you go outside and you have to clean the camera so people can still see what's going on outside. That doesn't sound so bad, right?
No, not at all.
Going out to clean is basically a death sentence, and you will die within minutes.
The whole premise reminds me of 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Okay, yeah, I see that.
You just don't know what's going to happen. Like, are they telling the truth? If they are, how much of it is truth? What's really going on outside? And it seems like that the show is based off of maybe the first season ends on her finally leaving and understanding what's going on.
You literally must be looking at my notes, man, because that's pretty much what I've written. Having not read the books, I mean, the thing about this type of show is it's all about the setup, right? It's all about the... And then does the payoff make you through...
Make it worth it.
Make it worth it while. In some ways, it reminds me a little bit of Snowpiercer. Did you ever watch Snowpiercer?
I did.
In that you've kind of got this, post-apocalyptic society, and it's all to do with class, In Snowpiercer, all the people at the front was first class, all the poor people and the refugees were at the back. In this show, all the richer people live towards the top of the silo, all the poorer, like the grunt work, mechanical as they're called, they all work down at the bottom of the silo. What I like is they've got all these rules about relics from the past that they're not allowed. They're all banned in the show. So, someone finds a Pez dispenser and they don't know what it is.
That's awesome.
And so you kind of get this thing, there are people who we haven't seen yet who are trying to control everyone in the silo and prevent this kind of uprising. It's been hinted at, there was riots in the past, there was an uprising in the past, but we've not seen anything like that yet. But you do get a lot of flashbacks to the main characters, what they were doing earlier in the story.
Does it say what year or how far in the future this is?
I don't think it's been hinted at. It's just, you're in the future somewhere, the world is fucked, everyone's living inside in a bunker.
Gotcha.
And it's been generations upon generations they've lived down there as well.
So they truly have no idea what's going on. So it's not like something maybe 10 years in the future where they remembered what the world was like.
No, they're like
they know.
Like you say, they're the people with hidden relics and like stuff from the past. So we know it's kind of based on our world at some point because, like you said, they're like all relics from the olden times, but they're like they're generally illegal. There's a bit where a certain character gets into trouble for having a watch.
Wow. Really?
It's an old watch, yeah. So
it's so crazy to think that you would think a watch would have lasted through because it tells time.
Well, there's one of the things. I don't know if it works, actually, to be fair. I think it's more like one character gave it to another character, and it has that extra meaning because of that. Having not read the books, like you summarised perfectly earlier, I think there's only a few ways this show can go, though, for its season end. One, they open a hatch, and they've been lied to, and the world is habitable. That's probably my guess. Or two, they open a hatch, there's a massive disaster, and it kills a bunch of people. That's also the way it could go. Or three, you can have some of our characters get out of the silo, find it is inhabitable, and then they go on a journey and they find another silo. Because let's face it, it's got to be one of those three, man. It's got to be one of those three. One other thing this did make me think of is Fallout, the video game Fallout.
Yes.
Which is actually being made into a TV show at the minute by Amazon. And it's got Ella Purnell, who played Jackie in Yellow Jackets, is the lead in it. And it's also got one of the guys out the Wall Goggins from The Shield is in it as well. So also on that, it's being produced by Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, who did Westworld. So although I didn't love Westworld, I mean, season 1 was brilliant. Before that, they did Person of Interest, which actually I preferred because it was did you remember that show with Jim Caviezel?
Jim Caviezel?
That's it. And that started off like, he's like a cop with memory loss thing. And then it turned up being like a Terminator TV show. It was like rogue AIs and all that. And this was, again, 10, 15 years ago. This show came out. And it got really, really good towards the end. It was one of the best things on. It also had the guy who played Ben Linus from Lost in it as well.
Oh, yes. He's a great character actor.
He was superb in that. I think he was better in that than he was in Lost. Anyway, it's a great show, and it's got Rebecca Ferguson in it, so I'm predisposed to love this.
Nice. A quick question, because of the fact that it has Rebecca Ferguson, but also Tim Robbins.
Yeah.
Does it show nationality at all? Do they have accents? Because I believe Rebecca Ferguson.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. She's Swedish, and I'm trying to figure out what accent she's doing in the show. I'm not 100% sure yet. I don't because she doesn't have much of a regular Swedish accent anyway when you see her in interviews. So that makes me wonder if they just said just do whatever you want.
Yeah, because in Mission Impossible, doesn't she?
She's English.
English.
Yeah, yeah. And I think most people, to be fair, think she's English anyway. To be fair,
honestly, that's where I was in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in that camp. I was like, she's a beautiful British woman, and I didn't realize she's Swedish, but that makes more sense now.
Well, next up, we're going to be talking Platonic, and this is from the makers of Bad Neighbours 1 and 2, and stars, well, the stars of Bad Neighbours 1 and 2. And Rose Byrne and Seth Rogen.
Rose Byrne is probably one of my favorite comedic actors because it's from someone who you expect to be a completely dramatic actress.
I loved her in Spy, which I still think is Melissa McCarthy's best film, hands down.
I'm on the fence on that one. It's funny, but I think that's when Melissa McCarthy had too much leeway on ad-libbing, and I could see it. It's one thing if you could see moments where I think she had a great line in like, let's say, Bridesmaids. But Spy, they're like, just ad-lib most of the script is what I thought.
I'm not sure it's ad-libbed, actually, because it's Paul Feig who wrote it. And, who also did Bridesmaids. So I don't think there's as much ad-libbing on it as you would get, because she does a lot of films with her husband, and they're the ones where there's a lot of bad ad-libbing in it. I think a lot of that it was just written. Also, Statham's in it as well, absolutely sending up his character. That is one of the funniest Statham films I've ever seen as well.
Okay, good. So I think, yeah, you're right. Statham does a great job of just playing a funny version of himself, and it's a great use of his character.
We're not talking about Statham. We're talking about Bad Neighbours 1 and 2.
My bad.
A TV show from the makers of Bad Neighbours 1 and 2, with the stars of Bad Neighbours 1 and 2, Rose Byrne and Seth Rogen. And it's from the director also of Bad Neighbours 1 and 2. And the setup here is, they're not a married couple in this one, but they are best friends who grew apart when they both got married. And then in the first episode, Sylvia, Byrne's character, finds out Rogen's character, Will, is getting divorced, and she reaches out to reconnect. And what was funny is Apple dropped the first 3 episodes of this in one go. And I can kind of see why, because the first episode, it was fine, but I think you need those episodes to ramp it up. And it was only the opening scene of episode 2 that really got me, that I thought was hilarious. And it wasn't even necessarily what I would stand, because if you see the trailer for this, it looks like your standard kind of Rogen Byrne comedy in that, they're middle-aged parents going out and doing stupid stuff and doing drugs and getting crazy, and yeah, I'm there for that. But also, there's this scene at the start of the second episode where you see her family. They each have 5 minutes in the bathroom at the start of the day to get ready, and they've all each got like a watch and like a time limit. And she goes in and she's doing her lipstick. Her daughter goes in and starts doing TikTok dances with the phone on a thing. The son goes in and he's got an iPad hidden underneath the sink, and he starts watching John Wick on it. And the kid must be about 7 or 8. So that really made me laugh. That was really well done.
That's great.
And what I like about this, they even let Byrne keep her actual Australian accent in the show.
No way.
She's got 3 kids. She's got a seemingly perfect husband. So are there any really issues? Well, their house is a bit cramped, and generally life seems pretty good for her in the first few episodes, especially compared to Rogen's character, who's recently divorced and runs a brewery, which immediately made me think of another show we just talked about on the last episode, Colin from Accounts, where the main character is an older guy who's single, who runs a brewery. So I was like, wow, did they just decide to both have breweries and hipster places? And I think seeing Will's crazy single life, Sylvia begins to question if she's boring. In the first episode, her and one of her friends, they go to his bar to see it, and they're just like, they feel so much older than everyone else there. And that really hit home.
I'm going to be honest, the whole premise of this show really hits home to me. Not only because I am older as well and single, but because I actually tend to have a lot of good female friends. So immediately this show was on my radar, and I just haven't had the time to sit down and watch this show. The
interesting hook for the show is the name of the show. And that is basically, can you really have a platonic best friend of the opposite sex? With Sylvia's, like I say, as I'm watching, I'm going, is her husband, he's seemingly too good to be true here. Is something going to come along there? Or is there going to be something he does that drives her to Will? And if not, I mean, the setup as well, if you think about it, the setup, what is it? It's one of the most famous rom-coms of all time. It's When Harry Met Sally. Can a man and a woman who are best friends just be best friends? Of course, in this one, you got the added wrinkle of that she's actually married and got 3 kids.
Yes.
So
I think in many situations, a show like that, that would be a possibility. But because the title of the show is platonic, I think, yes, that is really going to happen. And I think when you say, oh, is the husband going to do something? You're probably only thinking of it because you're thinking, how can a perfect husband be
perfect? You can't.
Yeah, and so
and encourage this relationship with.
Yeah, if this show is as good as it has potential for,
they don't go that route.
They don't go that route, but they also show that the husband is human too, and he probably has flaws and insecurities. And it's going to be like Ted Lasso, where they're going to figure out a healthy way. Season 1 of Ted Lasso.
Yes.
We're going to have a season 1 of Ted Lasso where the husband.
Season 1 of Shrinking.
Shrinking, yes. And I think that, like, the way you were describing it, it's very much like Shrinking, where the first episode, it wasn't the best, but it kind of laid the groundwork for the following episodes. So, again, I'm really looking forward to this. I see Carlo Gallo's in this, and I'm really excited to see her.
Do you know what? I don't even think I've noticed her in it yet. I remember her from Carnival back in the day, when she was one of the lead in that. And that's a show no one ever talks about that was amazing. Good HBO
Carnival
show. Ran for 2 seasons.
It has a season 2, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, I saw the first season. It was a bit of a plow through. But I really liked it. I like the concept, honestly.
Well, I'm going to say, despite going back on everything we just said, my prediction for the end of this series is that Will is going to find out Sylvia's husband has done something wrong. And he may have, and he might not have, but I think Will's going to think he has. And then it's, what does he do with that information? And that's kind of your cliffhanger for the end of the season. And I think it would be good, actually, if they do make it look like he's cheated or he's done something bad, and that we think that, and then Will's actually got it wrong and caused all this shit that actually wasn't there. That would be really good. That would be a good thing. Because that would be kind of going into what we expect of it, but then absolutely turning it around from it at the last minute.
I do. What I would say is, like that.
Yeah, I think that's the way they can go. But yeah, like I say, I'm really enjoying it so far. It's an easy watch as well. They're only 30-minute episodes, and it's Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne. It's great. Definitely catch up on it. Well, next up on Apple, we've got yet another show, and this time it's a crime drama from the makers of The OC and Gossip Girl, Josh Schwartz and Stephanie Savage. The show is City on Fire, and the plot is all about unravelling the mystery of who shot Samantha Young in Central Park on July 4th, 2003. And as the show progresses, the investigation leads into many different directions, including the downtown punk music scene, a series of citywide fires, and a wealthy real estate family with some dark secrets. And although we see Sam get shot in the first episode, and it's this incident that kind of launches the story, she is still present in a lot of flashbacks, which is a great idea because the young actress playing her is Chase Sui Wonders, who I'd never seen before, except she was in Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. If you've seen that film last year. She was really funny in that. And she gives a really, really likeable performance as Samantha. And she's involved in like the band club scenes, and she kind of takes the younger character, played by an actor called Wyatt Oleff. His character's Charlie. He kind of you can tell he's absolutely smitten with her, and she kind of takes him under her wing as she introduces him to that kind of rock music scene and punk music scene in the city. And of course, this means immediately you've got some amazing music in this show. Like from day one, you've got the Walkmen, the White Stripes, Cat Power, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, the Libertines, Radiohead, Minor Threat. That's just in the episodes I've seen so far, and I'm 2 or 3 episodes behind at the minute. What I think the show does really well is a central relationship between Samantha and Charlie, which I'd happily just watch the full show of that, to be fair, because it's so well done at the start, except she gets shot in the head in the first episode. That's not a spoiler, that's in the trailer. But from there, the show sends its tendrils out into all these different characters from different walks of life, and slowly starts connecting it all together. Also, special shout out to Alexandra Doak, who's a newcomer who I've not heard of before, and she plays a groupie called Sewer Girl, and she pretty much steals every scene she's in, just as John Cameron Mitchell as the villainous sounding Armory Gold. I didn't even realise this was a Josh Schwartz show, and I did unashamedly enjoy the OC back in the day, and this feels kind of similarly in a, like, it's kind of got that soapy element to it, and the New York side of it as well. But when that first episode ended, I immediately found myself wanting to watch the next one again and see where the story went. And it's one of these shows that kind of...
Wow.
I mean, like you said, you haven't started yet, but you've just seen the trailer. So, from the trailer... go.
I was blown away. It was so... I was literally shocked. I was just like... And that doesn't happen and this is a good shock because of just how beautiful it looked, the premise... And immediately it came to mind the other Apple TV show. I don't know if you've seen The After Party.
Right.
But
I've
it's
seen
a
few of them.
It's a comedic turn on the same premise. Very different show, but I completely understand how the flashbacks are going to work because I watched it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I'm really looking forward to seeing how this unwinds. And I guess maybe a minor spoiler alert for my just predictions. The fact that she's a photographer, I already know that she's got probably a roll of film somewhere hidden that has all the secrets on it.
That's a good shout. That's a very good shout, Jose. I will not confirm or deny that, to be fair. Only because I need to kind of have a bit of a rewatch. I just like the blending of the two different worlds. You've got like the street kids and the punk rock scene, and then you've got all like the rich people, and it's just like these people should not cross paths. And this one girl links them all together. And it draws everyone it draws all these different characters into their own orbits. So, yeah, I'm really enjoying it. And I think I'm going to catch up on that tonight. I've got a couple of more episodes to get back up to where it is on there. And finally today, on our TV reviews and our blatant plugging of Apple TV, again, another show that come out of nowhere that I didn't really know anything about. And honestly, we aren't sponsored by them. And that show is The Big Door Prize, a comedy drama based on the book of the same name by author M.O. Walsh that has already been renewed for a second season after a 10-episode first season of roughly 30-minute episodes. Now, with this show, because when I watched the first one, I think about a month ago, and then I watched, because it's on once a week on Apple when it's aired. The whole thing's aired now, so you can just binge the whole thing in one go.
Perfect.
But I was watching it
through.
Yeah, I was watching it kind of every week because I was like, and then I'd leave it a week or two just so I had a couple to watch back to back because it was getting really good. And again, it's one of these shows where really interesting premise at the start. I enjoyed it, but then it just ramps up, and every episode the story gets better and better because you get so much more depth and great character arcs. And I actually put a tweet out saying, who is watching The Big Door Prize? Because I'm not seeing anyone here talking about it. And a guy replied underneath, I'm watching it. That person was the author of the book, M.O. Walsh, which I didn't know at the time. Because I just clicked it and I was like, who's this person? Shit, he's actually the guy who wrote the book. So I was wondering, I was like, I wonder if he feels the same, right? Because you don't see anyone on social media talking about it. That's the thing, you go on Twitter, you go on your film Twitter, and you're looking at what your friends are watching, and no one's really talking about this show. And it's such a shame, man, because it's...
You know what? I'm gonna say to this why I think it's not really on anyone's radar, because this is what happened to me. I saw the trailer, and I'm like, the premise seems okay, and even the trailer kind of plays it more of a for a laugh, even though I think this show, 3 episodes in, it's a lot more deep and really character driven. And so I think that they really kind of just marketed it just a little off. Like, yeah, it can be funny, but it's way more than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll get briefly into the plot of the show without any spoilers. This is, again, mainly what you know from the trailer. And that a small town is forever changed when a mysterious machine, the Morpho machine, suddenly appears in the town's main convenience store overnight. And for a quarter, it will tell you what your life's potential will be, which is kind of a problem.
Quarter? For us, it's $2.
Is it $2?
$2 in quarters.
$2 in quarters. That's where I got it wrong. Hey, I got money explained.
I mean, granted, you're talking about money from another country, so it probably is
money from another country, and literally no one really uses cash anymore, especially over here.
Right? That was one thing. I'm like, who has quarters to do this? And just since you're already talking about that part, I'm gonna really sidetrack you for a little bit. The fact that it asks for your social security number.
Yes. Like, how did that was my first. Good shout. I literally noted that down. I was like, are you all idiots? You would not give them your fingerprints as well and social security numbers. That just seems like you're asking to be massively conned and like ripped off of everything. And yet not one person. Oh, one of the kids questions it in the
later on
in one of the school classes, and in one of Dustin's classes. But yeah, that's it. And like they just kind of like shoo it away. And I was like, all right, they're shooing it away. This has got to be a big thing later on.
Yeah, I was just like. I was all in, okay, $2, it tells you your life, but then social security number, and I'm like, hold up, this is where I would stop immediately.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I that really did rub against me the wrong way. I was like, no, that you wouldn't do that. I was like, I'll just, what do we call it over here? National insurance number. Yeah, you would not give people that. Like, it would not be the same thing. But people do. And soon, because of this machine, people start changing jobs, rethinking their relationships, and just questioning their long-held beliefs. Now, the cast is led primarily by Chris O'Dowd, who everyone in the UK knows from the IT Crowd, which is just superb. But I know in the States he's been on... Wasn't there a TV adaptation of Get Shorty, which he was the main character in? And
I'll be honest, I didn't see that TV show.
I know it ran for like 3 or 4 years. I haven't seen it, but he was playing American in it, and he was like the lead character in it. So he's been out over there for quite a while. But anyway, O'Dowd's character is Dusty. He's quite happy in his life as a teacher and married to the love of his life, Cass, played by the equally great Gabrielle Dennis, who I had not seen in anything previously before. And she is really good here as his wife. And she gets a card from the machine that makes her question her life choices. Their daughter Trina as well. She's recovering from a recent tragedy and she's working at Giorgio's restaurant. And Giorgio is played by Josh Segarra, who we last saw in Scream 6, playing the boyfriend of Melissa Barrero's character. That was him.
I still have to watch Scream 6.
Right, well, he's in that. Yeah. Yes. And he still harbours a massive crush on Dusty's wife from back, because it's a small town thing, right? So
it's not a subtle thing either.
Oh,
it's so funny.
Yeah, yeah. And then you've got the character of Jacob, who's another youngster at the school, and his father, Bo, who is definitely afraid. Cheap joke. Who are also dealing with a loss. And at times, it's quite a bittersweet show because people just start blowing up their lives left, right, and centre because of what this machine puts on a card. And Dusty initially is one of the most resistant to it, especially when he gets his card. And I tell you what this show reminded me of in a way. It reminded me of the movie Pleasantville. Do you remember that from back in the day?
That is a great movie. That is a great movie.
Early Reese Witherspoon and I want to say Tobey Maguire.
Tobey Maguire and
Jeff Daniels
from Fast and the Furious fame, Paul Walker. Yes,
he's in it as well. That's it.
He's the boyfriend that gets initially turned by Reese Witherspoon.
That's the one. Yeah, and they kind of, and it's just, it's such a clever film, and it's that kind of slow awakening of everyone deciding what they want to do, And I kind of got that feeling from this show. It's not obviously but like, where is it set in America? It's kind of got this almost Frank Capra-esque thing to it, hasn't it? Where it's this perfect little town of Beaverton, Beaverton, the name of the show. Where's my notes?
Because the reindeers are the high school.
Yeah.
But I know it's. I feel like it's supposed to be just a classic Midwestern town.
Yeah.
That is not very specific.
It feels timeless, doesn't it? It feels like that perfect slice of Americana. And I will say that after the initial setup of the first few episodes, the show falls into a pattern of flashbacks and side stories filling in all the other characters. And I really enjoyed that because at the start I was like, I'm not quite sure where this is going. Again, it can only go one way. We need to concentrate on the machine. And it stopped being more about that and more you meet a character and then their roles expand the next one and then it's expanding more. And the show just does such a beautiful job of expanding out every character in the show. And
that's awesome.
All the actors are really well. And again, I think this is one of those shows where perhaps releasing it week to week didn't actually help it. And if people would binged it and they like you say, you are now watching, you watch like the first 2 or 3 in one go. Once you get there, it just keeps going. I mean, it just keeps going and going. And like, it does a masterful job of showing us how interlinked, how everyone's lives are in a town. And can the machine be trusted? And how do you even process what some of the cards say? Like, some of them are like direct job recommendations. Like, one guy gets one that says meteorologist. Which she thinks is studying meteors,
the student. I remember that one.
But then you get some ones that are much more interesting, and one says father. And
oh my god, yeah, I just saw that one. I'm like,
and another character gets one that says liar.
Ooh, we don't know. I'm at the point where I didn't see who got that one yet.
That's why I'm not telling you who got them.
Yes.
But yeah, I'd say the cast are great across the board, and many of the actors outside of O'Dowd I've not really seen before. I mean, O'Dowd plays his most Chris O'Dowd as he can, you know. He's a man who's quite happy with his lot of life, and he just can't understand why this machine is causing all this commotion. I would say special shout-outs. I think 2 of the best people in the cast... Actually, no. My 3 special shout-outs were people I'd not seen before. It was Gabrielle Dennis, who gives such a layered performance as his wife. And, of course, she gets a card that makes her question, obviously, the marriage and all that. But, again, you could have thought that character and that performance could have gone easily so one way. And the layers she adds to it, the way it develops as the show goes on, is superb. It's superb writing and it's really good acting. Also, their daughter, a young actress called Juliette Amara, who I've not seen anything, played Trina. And again, she perfectly walks the line between snarky teenager and really, really switched on, intelligent young woman. I mean, she'll be a star for sure going forward. And of course, as does her friend Jacob, played by a young actor again called Sammy Fawless. And again, this show, I'd not heard of anyone really in it, but they're all superb actors, man.
Has he been on more? Because he just looks familiar.
I think he's just got that generic Timothée Chalamet young teenager hair, hasn't he? He's like, you know, if you had a spare, then just go and grab him for it, you know.
I really thought I've seen him in more, but like because he's a young actor, or maybe I just didn't recognize him because he's been growing up.
I will
But
say, man, out of all the shows we've mentioned to today, I think this was probably my favourite. I mean, obviously, it's the only one that's completely finished that we've
oh
watched.
wow,
But yeah, definitely follow it through, man. And like you say, we know we got a second season coming because Apple don't cancel shit all the time, which is
right?
nice.
You
So
know,
at least we know we're going to get a second series of all of these shows.
in a way, I think what Apple has done is what Netflix has been opposite of, is that they make less shows, but they make better quality of it, and then they keep the shows on to create more depth to
Build the
their.
audience, like we said on the last episode. Man.
Yeah, you're right.
Ro-
I'm looking at IMDb for that. Sammy Forless is the name of the guy,
Yep,
and he doesn't seem to have much. The Big Door Prize.
that's it. There you go.
Wow.
And I mean, if that's his first major role, what a performance, man! The kid's superb. Yes, listener. We found David. He's literally just messaged us in and asking Jose about buying places in Florida. And we're trying to tell him, David, we only have a short amount of time left on this episode to talk about Spiderverse. Yes, finally today we are going to talk the long-awaited sequel to 2018's Into the Spider-Verse, directed by Joaquin DeSantos, Kemp Powers, and Justin K. Thompson in their directing debuts, and is written by Phil Lord, Chris Miller, with David Callahan.
Can I say Phil Lord and Chris Miller? I believe in their team now. I mean, granted, I've always believed in them, but like they just, oh my goodness, they've just done a great job. Just real quick, I'm gonna say, I can only remember a handful of times I felt like this after a movie, and those times were Infinity War, Endgame, and No Way Home. Ironically, all containing Spider-Man.
That's high praise. Now, I, like everyone else, absolutely loved the original film from 2018, but do you know what? I hadn't gone back to it since I saw it in the cinema. So it
Okay.
hadn't made that much of a... I mean, how many times have you seen the film?
That's unfair because I have the Blu-ray. I've seen it at least 4 or 5 times.
That's what I mean. That's good, right? That means it's definitely picking up rewatchings,
It's
man.
very rewatchable, and honestly, you pick up even more little things. Like, I want to use this example, but it's actually important in the. Okay, so just little things, honestly, like Doc Ock, and but her friends call her something else, and then later on in that movie when they attack Aunt May, the way she's like, oh, it's so and so, and I hate that I don't remember her name, but it basically implies that they were friends at one point. So the layering of the first movie was so good, and it really carries over into this movie.
Well, what I will say is, without getting into heavy spoilers, we're not going to tell you much more than you would know unless you've seen the trailers or read a little bit about the film here. And the film starts off not with Miles Morales in Brooklyn. It starts off with Spider-Gwen in her reality of Earth 65. As always, she's played by Hailee Steinfeld. And we kind of establish her storyline and her backstory a little bit and what's been going on in her life before we move over and check in on Miles. And what I loved about this was a little touch where one of my favourite visual flourishes in the whole film is using the actual comic books. Having a proper comic book on screen and then using it as almost like chapter markers. And then, this chapter is what's been happening with Gwen since the last movie. And so it's like her own little nice prologue to set up her character. And there are already rumours, well, not already good rumours, that there's going to be a spin-off film for her.
Well deserved. And I think, if anything, the art style, they really did a great job of separating Spider-Gwen's world from Miles Morales' world. Every world, honestly, yes.
What happened, and as we say, as expected, bad guys bring Gwen and Miles together once again, and we learn of the existence of the Spider Society, a multiversal crack team of the top spider people from the multiverse, and Miles kind of has to join them and stop an imminent threat. And as I said, I don't really want to get more into the plot than what we see in the trailers, but what I think we will do is talk about what is absolutely superb in the film. And like you just said there, Jose, the first thing is the visuals. It is just visually amazing. As I said, using the actual comic book images on the screen to break up scenes, to having reference notes from issues pop up on the screen to give us more information on what we're watching. I mean, you need to watch this film almost frame by frame to catch everything in it. And that is part of the genius of it. Because it's so fast.
You think, okay, they did something great in the first one where they used bubble thoughts. And they didn't actually use the reference point that much. I don't think at all in the first movie. And now they've added that. And it's another thing there's they've improved. Like, it's crazy to say that they could improve from the first film, but to be able to improve with just little details like that is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the pace of the film is something it's just so, it's almost like you're suffering from sensory overload in it, aren't you? At times,
Yes,
you can't, your eyes cannot believe what it is seeing from the different visual styles, like you mentioned, where one reality is completely different from the other one. That even within fight scenes, you have characters from one reality that is absolutely complete, which is an absolutely completely different animation style from our main characters, and you're like, how does it work? Like in theory, that should not work at all. And when characters
Absolutely
blend
correct.
together and they're fighting, it's one of the most kinetic films I've ever seen when it just blends so many different types of animation together. But it does it without it ever feeling too much or messy. You can track what's going on. You can easily follow it. And how many bad action films do we see, or superhero films, where shaky cam, move the camera around fast to hide the budget? And every shot is a work of art, man. Every shot.
I'm gonna tell you, to kind of complement that, is the way that they used the Spider People's fighting styles. It just added to their personalities.
Oh, 100%.
What it did, it didn't just do like standard fighting scenes where people use their abilities and they use the web. They were really thinking about how can we use these Spider People's abilities and make them unique to each character. And there's so many characters we want to talk about, but we don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah.
But everyone was absolutely, like, you could tell they took the time to think about how can we make this unique for this character versus that character, and how can we use that in a fight. And it was just amazing. I'm going to be using the word amazing a lot in this review, but
we're going to run out of superlatives, I think.
Bottom line, I think it was worth the 5 years that we had to wait from 2018 to now.
Well, here's the thing, right? I think, and this is where people always argue, you get the animation argument, right? Where people go, oh, well, animations for kids is not a proper film, blah, 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 all that stuff. Mm-hmm. You don't get any of the fuck-ups you get in the bigger films in animation, because every single thing you see in the frame, every single shot has to be storyboarded, and not I'm saying it isn't on the other Marvel films.
It's purposely done.
There's nothing that's not done for a very specific reason. Right, again, like we said, visually, I mean, it's absolutely outstanding. What I do love as well, I mean, we mentioned the visuals, the writing, the story in this is so well done. I love the MacGuffin of the plot. That when we get the big plot reveal about how and the why, it's such a clever idea in execution, and it continuously surprises you without being too complicated or derivative of what we've seen in other multiverse films recently. You've had Doctor Strange, you've had Everything Everywhere All at Once. You've had lots of shows and movies all doing that kind of thing. And Lord Miller and Callahan do a superb job just creating a great superhero story, but one that has such a strong focus on family and character. And no, Vin Diesel, we don't want Spider-Vin. I'm just saying, you cannot jump franchises.
But you know what? It's funny that you mentioned Everything Everywhere All at Once, because it did a great job of all these universes by bringing it into character. That's where it anchors everything. Yeah. And this Spider-Man movie does the same thing. Yes, we're going to have visuals and we're going to have a lot of characters and a lot of versions of Spider-Man, but you have to anchor that on something very important, and this movie does. It's a great comparison.
I mean, what makes the film, as we said, is how well the relationships are written and how diverse the cast are. I mean, Miles' parents, let me remember right, his dad's African-American and his mum is from
Puerto Rico.
And so when there's an early scene where you see them having a party on the rooftop, and that's nothing like I've ever seen before. But I imagine if you're from that community, that's exactly what they would be like. So for representation, it absolutely nails it. I'd imagine, like, again, I'm a middle-aged white guy from England, so that is absolutely nothing that I would know about.
I feel like Spider-Man's mom, I think it's Rhea Morales, played by Lauren Velez. She, in the first movie, I think she had a small little bit part. They didn't really use her. In this one, they actually were able to flesh her character out a little bit more. And they were able to use her acting ability, I think, in a good way. For more than one reason. That's all I'm going to say. What
I would expect, I mean, I think the relationships and the use of the parents in this film is so well done. Because it's not the usual standard we expect in these superhero films, You got Gwen's relationship with her father, and everything just feels so fresh and original in the way it's written and portrayed on screen. We do have a villain, and that villain is called The Spot, and he's played by Jason Schwartzman. Because I was trying to place the voice as I was watching it. And again, what I love with his character is he starts off as kind of a joke character. You know, he kind of isn't taken seriously by Miles in their initial meeting. I think he quickly becomes a much more formidable adversary for Miles and the Spider People. And again, he has a brilliant character origin story and arc, because you're thinking, oh, this is kind of a joke character. It's like a fun scene when we initially meet him, and then it takes a turn, and then you're like, well, wait, what we learn about him, what we learn about his past, actually, we kind of feel sorry for him a little bit. This is kind of okay, it's making us think a little bit more about it. I mean, as we say, it would be easy for this film to just be visually dazzling. You know, it could be all surface and no substance. I mean, I think Super Mario Brothers would be a good example of that. It's a film that gives you all the visual, you know, it's done really, that Super Mario Brothers, it was the biggest animated film of the year. I think that's going to go by really quickly now.
Yes.
Again, that's the kind of film, though, it's all surface level fan service, but it's fun and it's enjoyable. This goes so much deeper. This has so much more going on in it.
Yes, it does play the balance well of playing to, honestly, there's a lot of fan service in this film. I don't want to say anything more than that.
Oh, there's tons, but it moves so fast you can't catch it all on the first viewing.
Yes. And then it balances it out with the character development, the plot, so to speak. It's hard to say the plot, but it's really the journey, I think, in this movie that really is what captivates everybody.
I mean, I immediately preferred this to the original film. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I like the original, but I hadn't seen it since I saw it back in the cinema in 2018. And I actually wondered, would I be able to keep up with the film having only seen the original once? Because I remembered how fast and frenetic it was. But no, because the writing here is so good that the film is really easy to follow.
Mm-hmm. And I would say go watch it again. I think you're going to catch a few things, but yeah, this does a really good job of being a standalone sequel, even though it is tied to the first.
Now, one of the few new Spider people we have introduced, I will talk about briefly, only because he's a big name actor playing him, and he's kind of one of the main. He's a leader of the Spider Society, and that is Oscar Isaac playing Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, who is a ninja vampire of Spider-Man.
One thing I didn't realize is when you look back at the extended end credit scenes, his character design changed a bit drastically. And in the sense that in the end credit scenes of the first film, he's a little more proportional. If anything, like the blades on his arms are a little smaller. And in this movie, they've really made him more of a drastically expanded character.
I mean, he looks a bit more like Venom than anything else, doesn't he? In it,
very close to, yeah.
Yeah. And also, he is the one Spider person that we meet who has absolutely no sense of humor.
Yes.
And
you wonder, is he really Spider-Man?
Yeah, I mean, it's just there's so many different iterations that we see in the film. But I mean, it made me laugh. Like you say, he looks a bit more like Venom, and in his gruff leader exterior thing, he felt a bit more like Batman to me than he did Spider-Man.
Yeah,
he's that older guy who's trying to hold. Yeah, you know, he's. But again, it's such a great performance. I mean, now this film, not this film. Now the original film won the best animated film at the 2019 Oscars, and I think it's pretty safe to say that this film will repeat that fact because it's just simply superb. I mean, people have already been saying this should be up for best film, not just best animated, and I agree. It's visually amazing, superb cinematography. The blending of the styles, the cinematography is second to none, and like we say, the writing and the character work. All that is absolutely top drawer as well. For me, these are all awards-worthy categories this film falls into immediately. I mean, my only caveat with the film is it's 2 hours and 20 minutes, but it's not the length because that flies by. And it flies by so much that when it got to the end of the film, it kind of caught me by surprise. And I'd completely forgotten that this was originally going to be a two-parter, Across the Spiderverse Part 1 and Part 2. And then what they've done is they've delayed it. So it does kind of end on not a major cliffhanger, but enough of a cliffhanger, I'd say.
Oh, you know what? I would compare it to the Lord of the Rings kind of. It cuts off at a point that seems kind of natural.
Yeah, it's a natural cut-off point, but you're just like, oh shit, that's the end of the film.
Right, yeah.
When it starts building and building, I was like, oh shit, yeah, this is going to be the end of it. What they've done now is instead of it being Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 and Part 2, now Part 3 when it comes out, and that's March next year, March 2024, it's going to be called Beyond the Spider-Verse. So it does end on a to be continued moment, which I totally forgot was coming because I was so engrossed in the film. Final thoughts, Jose?
Like I said before, the reaction I felt was very similar to Endgame, Infinity War, and No Way Home. So I have to let it kind of sink in. Maybe I'm going to watch this movie a few more times because I know this is going to receive a high score from me for sure. It's just, is it going to be a 10 out of 10 the whole way through, or is it going to kind of settle into more of an 8 out of 10? I've seen some critics kind of settle it down more in that category, 8 out of 10 instead of a perfect film.
Do you think that is after more than one viewing?
I think so, yeah. I think after more than one viewing, you get over the initial shock of seeing
the sensory overload.
Yes, and then, but I honestly, I think, hopefully, in my head, it's going to stay at least a 9.
I mean, I immediately gave this a 10 out of 10. I was just like, that is just, as all you see with all the Martin Scorsese gifts, this is cinema. And that is cinema, man. That is just breathtaking. You know, give these writers, give these directors whatever the fuck they want to do for the rest of their careers, because, I mean, Jesus.
That's the funny thing is, this is a Sony movie. This is a Sony film. And if you would have told us 6 years ago...
But it's in association, isn't it, with Marvel?
Association,
so you wonder how... And if you look at the Marvel... If you look at the Sony solo stuff, like Venom, which is bad...
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sony was smart to keep the deal going with Marvel on Spider-Man, because they realised... Because if you remember what happened is, you know, Marvel, when the deal ended, they was like, no, Tom Holland's coming over to us, and then it all got hashed out. Mm-hmm. And they know they make enough money on... They'd obviously both seen No Way Home and realised, you know what, this is going to make all the money. It's going to break people's brains with the cameos that happen in that later on.
Yeah.
And we should just keep working together. But I'm sure Feige has just got an absolute iron... this is what you have to do. And it's funny because people said, is this the best film in the MCU? And then the next question was, well, is this film actually in the MCU? I don't think it is. I think it's its own thing, which it clearly is.
Almost in a way helps it, because it doesn't have to tie itself to any of the other MCU films. And in recent years, I feel like that's kind of been a hindrance of some of the newer films. Plus, I think there's a lot of other factors as well. But the fact that this is a Sony Pictures film, and the first one...
in association with Marvel.
And I keep...
And the only reason I keep correcting you on that is because I think if it was Sony by themselves, I don't think it would... We'd just get a Venom again. I think that... But I think it's the creatives behind it. I think, like you say, it's Lord and Miller, the directors. I mean, these directors on this, it's their first film. That's insane. You make something this good on your first... I mean, I don't know much about the guys, to be honest, but I'm sure if you looked in their IMDb's, and I'm sure they have got so much animation experience between the three of them that they've worked on stuff before to get to this point. Or if they haven't, that's even more fucking amazing.
Yeah. And I think what's great about this is that with the success of the first one, they were probably just given free reign to be like, you know what, you did a great job on the first one, we're going to trust you on this one now. And I think that was probably another factor.
I mean, I once I did see one comment on Twitter when someone said, what if Marvel and Sony, they managed to do like bring some of these actors in to live action versions, because the Spiderverse can do so much crazy stuff. They could totally do a Who Framed Roger Rabbit modern day. Where, I mean, can you imagine Haley Steinfeld bumping into herself as Spider-Gwen, bumping into Kate Bishop? You know, you've got Daniel Kaluuya could be Spider-Punk. We didn't mention him earlier, but yeah, Daniel Kaluuya playing Spider-Punk, who's like a British punk rock Spider-Man, was hilarious. I think we've done quite a good job here, Jose, because we haven't spoiled anything. We've just
that is correct.
Shared our enthusiasm of what we thought was amazing about the film, and the one negative is it's a two-parter. We got to wait, but only till next March. So you know, it's not that bad.
Yeah, but back to a little bit about the characters. I think even if there was no crossover, they could make a live-action version with these actors.
Oh God, can you imagine that lineup?
Oh, that'd be so amazing.
Well, we are still waiting on the live-action Miles Morales, aren't we? And I know for 8 years, people said they wanted Donald Glover to play him. But I think he's a bit too old now.
I think that with the actors that we have and the story that's being told, there is a lot of potential for a live-action Miles Morales, honestly.
Well, I think you could go with the actor who's playing him in the film, to be fair, in Spider-Verse.
Oh.
Is it Shameik Moore?
Shameik Moore, but I feel like he is a little too old to play a teenager.
Hey, CGI is a wonderful thing these days, man. Right, I think that about wraps us up here on the Weenie Rose podcast. And join us again soon, where we are going to be talking, I believe on our next episode, we're going to be delving into some spoiler finales. We're going to be talking the finale of Barry and also Ted Lasso. And from a little talk off camera, me and Jose have very differing opinions on the season finale of Ted Lasso.
And I'm totally in the right.
You're so not. But we'll get into that later. See you next time, folks.
We needed roads.